No one knows what the future holds, but if a new house is in your future, I can help from a safe distance. I'm Nick Acosta, your downtown expert, and I'm hosting safe and sanitary open houses. Nothing is different except for temperature checks at the door and masks are required. But it still smells like there are fresh baked cookies in the oven. So come on by one of my safe and sanitary open houses, and I'll say welcome home from 6 feet away.
This is Home2All, an all-inclusive real estate podcast with your host, Nicholas Acosta. Nick sits down with guests to talk about real estate and how it works. Reach him at downtown.expert on Facebook and Instagram, or his website, www.downtown.expert, or call or text him at 407-508-8809. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody. This is Nicholas Acosta, host of the podcast Home2All, all-inclusive real estate podcast. Good afternoon on this Friday, September 3rd, 2021, coming to you live from St. Petersburg, Florida. We were supposed to have a show today for life insurance with Blanchard Insurance with Mike Synthetic, but things have been crazy busy this week, especially with the hurricane that just came through. New Orleans and all the way to the Northeast. So I understand that his schedule might be constrained right now due to that storm, and especially since they're in the insurance business. So bear with me today. I'm just going to have a brief episode just to kind of update you guys on what's going on. It's been a crazy week here in real estate. My associates have been getting contracts put in, and I've been out there helping buyers look for homes, and then even new construction as well. So anyways, I want to thank you guys for your support for this show. And I wanted to first start by telling you guys, as you guys know, we talked about the mold damage to my house a couple weeks ago when we were on the show. That's the reason that the podcast has been on hiatus until now. So I appreciate you guys still following and supporting the podcast. But anyways, I want to start with showing you pictures of what the house looks like now. But I will show you first a picture of what it looked like the last time we were on. So this was our living room. As you see, all the drywall missing, 4 feet from the ground up to that blue tape. And then, of course, behind the shower cartridge there where the pipes are for the shower, that was all damaged due to mold. And but I would like to give you an update. As of today, the work should be done by tomorrow, but as of today, this is what it looks like. Completely different, right? And you guys can see my myself back in. But anyways, guys, so just want to give you guys an update. So real estate school. We have a real estate school here at Downtown Expert Realty School of Real Estate. We have a promo going for 15% off, and that is at code St. Pete 15 at checkout. Again, that's St. Pete 15. And let me just update this so you guys can see it. Appreciate your patience today. Yeah, I completely forgot, and bear with me that we have been having such a crazy time due to Hurricane Ida. And so just wanted to let you guys know that. There it is right there, actually. Let me take this off here and make this like this for you guys. So use the code StP15 at downtownexpert.school, 15% off at checkout on one of the classes or continuing education of your choosing. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at this week, guys. I just I'll show you guys the website of the school. So really trying to get, let me see, hold on. Let me get this up for you guys. Bear with me here. And we're going to go share my screen. I guess what I could do is, there you go. And let me take this off. So to our website, Downtown Expert School of Real Estate, you will click on the online school. It takes you here. You put the state of Florida, your license type, product type, and that's all you got to do. So with that, actually, what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to go ahead and just play a 4-minute clip of my interview with Daytime TV to kind of fill the space, since we had an unscheduled situation with the hurricane that came through New Orleans. So just give me 1 second, guys, and I'll get this started.
Listing your home doesn't have to be stressful or overwhelming, and our next guest wants to help you get your home sold fast and for top dollar. From Downtown Expert Realty, we now welcome the broker and owner, Nick Acosta. Nick, good to have you on Daytime.
Thank you, Maggie.
First off, congratulations, because I know that you started your brokerage during the pandemic. Not an easy thing to do. Why and how did you do that?
Well, why was we had a lot of downtime, so I decided to utilize that time wisely. And I also had a vision of owning my own brokerage because I wanted to bring diversity and inclusion into my business. So that's why, and also got my school started for real estate as well. So
diversity and inclusion, what else would you say makes your firm different from all the others out there?
I would say that I'm always there for my associates, and I'm also very proud of my brand and want to see myself and my associates succeed.
If you had to say to somebody looking to buy or sell their home, choose me, what's the best reason you could give them?
Because for me, it's more about getting them in that home and having the lasting relationship way past the closing, because I want to see them succeed and fall in love with it.
Hey there, Mike. How's it going?
Hey, good, man. Sorry, I'm running a few minutes late. I had a little bit of a family emergency that just popped up. Second Friday in a row, have had some family emergencies. Always fun.
All good. No worries. So let's go ahead and talk about life insurance, especially with the COVID variant going on out there, and a lot of people still not getting vaccinated to protect themselves from the virus. What are you seeing in terms of insurance wise, or anybody, or are people getting more life insurance policies than normal?
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up. Not only in my own family, with relatives and stuff, have I seen people getting sick, but even on our own client base. I mean, we have a pretty large following client base here in Central Florida, from I-4 corridor, from coast to coast. Tens of thousands of clients, and we've had, unfortunately, some of our clients passing away recently because of COVID and COVID-related complications. And it kind of really shocked us because it wasn't elderly people. It wasn't people who were 75 or 80 years old or 90 years old, coming down with pneumonia and passing away, as you would think. It was actually some of the funeral arrangements we were sending out to some of the families were, COVID victims who were my age. And some of them had been fully vaxxed and had been since the beginning. And some of them really didn't have any significant pre-existing conditions. So it really kind of put a shock in our system as a team in regards to the Blanchard family. And, we really started kind of, looking at this. and kind of scared us. But yes, there has been a recent surge in life insurance applications going through, and it's something obviously we are proponents of. It's something that people generally always put on the back burner. Number one, the most common excuse is, well, I have it through my work. But a lot of people don't realize that when you have life insurance through your work, you're either probably in some type of term policy with whatever your employer is willing to pay the full bill on or half the bill on. So it's usually a term policy with a lot of caveats built into it. It could be a short term, could be a low amount, or they have you built into a whole life policy, a group whole life policy, which usually the amounts on those aren't anything significant, maybe $30,000, and you can always opt to buy more. So whenever we hear clients actually telling us, or if I hear anybody in my personal life telling me, well, I already have life insurance and yada yada yada, I kind of go, well, do you really know what it is? And when you start asking them that, they really don't know how much they have or what type of policy they have in the first place. And a lot of them don't know that. I mean, as soon as you leave your employer, I mean, that coverage usually is the first thing to stop. Even more so before health insurance, and it doesn't continue on. You have the option to do it, but most people don't continue on with their life insurance. And then it gets down to the second point is everybody, nobody likes to talk about death. I know it's a sore subject with a lot of people. Nobody wants to think about their spouse passing away, and it's just a miserable thought. And I would never want to think about a family member dying, but it's something that everybody needs to consider, especially the breadwinner of the family or the one who's bringing in the most income, because it's a big, difficult hit to handle. And it's not only the financial toll it takes on the family, but it's the quality of life, and it's also for planning purposes. I'm trying to think after my father passed away back in, a few years ago, where my mother went through, and I had to help her out too. But I mean, she was kind of living 1,000 miles away at the time. And it took her maybe a good year or two to kind of sort out everything, my father's estate, in regards to finances, where everything was, what accounts, stocks, everything, so it's a quality of life thing. And usually when you see the spouse or family members coming off of that transitional period, I mean, it's exhausting. It's especially like if you are on the, this is on the side and you're working full time, or you have family and you have young kids taking care of them. And that's where life insurance comes into play. Now, financially, it helps you out, but financially, you could probably go and actually pay somebody to do a lot of this lifting and a lot of this work and a lot of this burden for you, because that's what's being left behind. And so there's a lot of that. And then, I would say close number 3 cause why people don't is the invincibility factor. People think they're invincible in regards to, I'm not going to get sick, I'm not going to die, and, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? We've seen it all. We've seen, people in perfect health, I hate to use the adage, but step off the street corner and get hit by a bus. I mean, we've had that happen. We've had people die of unexpected reasons. So, I mean, it does happen. So you really can't think you're invincible. And then you always have to think about your legacy of what you're being behind. I say, life insurance, number one, is it's an act of unselfishness. It's not a selfish act; it's an act of unselfishness. It's meaning it's an act of almost charity to a degree, because you are leaving something behind for your family to be taken care of. And obviously you're not going to be here, and God knows what happens. Nobody really knows what happens in the afterlife, depending on what your belief system is. But it's the ultimate act of kindness and the best gift, really. And over the years, I've heard that term being said, the best gift you can give anybody is life insurance. When you really do think about it, it is the best gift that you can give a family member, because it is a guarantee. It's an act of complete kindness if something were to happen to you, knowing that they would be taken care of.
No, most definitely. And just a side note, I had that graphic up there that I got from Google, but the latest statistics just in Pinellas County in the last 2 weeks, it says 13,000 cases of COVID. which is crazy. That's a lot in 2 weeks. And I've heard we have a friend of ours that has a kid in school in Pinellas County, and they got a phone call yesterday that 26 students tested positive for COVID, and that was just yesterday. So
I've heard the same thing, especially here in the office, where a lot of the team members do have small children who are going to school, and we have heard the exact same thing. And recently, I was up in North Georgia, and after 5 years, took a day off, but it was nice and relaxed. I was in a cabin on top of a mountain, just kind of, freeing the soul and freeing the brain a little bit from, confines of, work life. But I get away from Florida for a little bit, even though I love Florida. But I was looking at the stats up there while I was up there, and it was something like 5,000 cases in the entire state of Georgia on that specific day. And down in Florida, I think it was like 25 or 27,000 cases. And it was remarkable. I mean, people up there, were still, some were wearing masks, some weren't. I mean, it's rural North Georgia. But yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you there's a lot of cases going on in Florida. And even somebody recently, I guess UCF had their first homecoming game last night. And I was looking at, I didn't go, even though I did 2 years at UCF, but I was looking at pictures that people were posting, and I was like, great, everybody's getting back out, going to football games and whatnot. But I mean, that stadium was packed, and there were tons of people without masks. I would say the greater majority of people I was looking at in the photograph, I was like, oh, nobody's wearing masks. This is not over yet. But and it's also, I'm getting to the point where kind of like my belief system in it has not only looking out for my personal health, but it's also, just like we spoke about, an act of kindness for life insurance, kind of like an act of kindness to your, fellow Floridians out there too, is if you do go to an event like that and there is an outbreak, are you bringing it home to your family? Are you bringing it into your job? Are you bringing it in? And those are things you got to think about too. And especially people, I think my personal opinion on it is, especially the people out there who think they are in excellent health. They may run marathons and be in perfect health, never gets a cold, never pre-existing conditions. That's good and all, but the person standing next to you in line at, the grocery store may not have that optimal health. So you really got to be kind of cognizant of that, because again, even if you're not going to get sick and show symptoms, passing it on to another person is, possibly, if I knew I had done that, I would really feel guilty about that if, God forbid, somebody were to pass away.
No, most definitely. And then you hear stories all the time. Speaking of life insurance, I think we had a governor, was it Lawton Childs from Florida, who was always healthy, always exercising. People like that, just because you're healthy and in shape doesn't mean that you can't, unfortunately, pass away, like people that are sometimes very fit. And just like Mike's saying, when you go somewhere like to a football game and you feel healthy and you are healthy, that doesn't mean you're not carrying the virus in your system. And then that means you still could pass it on to somebody that's at risk of getting it. So,
yeah, like I said, I mean, unfortunately, we've been sending out funeral arrangements to clients who have passed on. And I mean, I'm talking people in their early 40s, people who were in good health 2 weeks prior. And the next thing you know, a couple weeks later, they're on a ventilator. Or their spouse is on a ventilator, or even their kids. It's really scary out there. And it's good to see too. I think a lot of we've had enough of it happen so far, where I think a lot of people have kind of seen what has gone on and happened. So it's no longer a mystery. I mean, when the outbreak first started, I was scared to get vaxxed. I didn't know what it was going to do. I was kind of waiting for, some people and family members and that get the vaccines first, because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. But now you kind of start hearing more and more of these stories of people getting sick that you didn't think ever could get sick. And it really does become, it can't affect me, but then it really becomes a shock to the system. And I think you're going to really, honestly, probably see more of that come about. Because again, this is going to be something that they are going to study for years, if not decades.
Oh no, well, I'll admit I'm part of the Pfizer trial, and they told me it was going to be at least 2 years. They're also seeing this trying to determine if the vaccine can last for 2 years as well, and get shots every 2 years for the rest of our lives. That's what
Yeah,
they're testing.
Does it become like hey, I'm an elderly person. I got to go in and get a flu shot every year. I never really got flu shots, but now I'm starting to think, as I get a little bit older, being in midlife, I'm kind of like, yeah, it might be a good idea just to kind of play it safe. But hopefully again, the tide turns around. But again, life insurance is one of I think if not the most important coverage to go around. I mean, and kind of I talk we're always talking to people about it. I go, well, you're going to buy insurance on your car. Well, guess what? Your car can get totaled. Hopefully, you're not in it. But I mean, that's something you can throw away. You can't throw your life away, and you can't put a price on that. So I look at people, and people never understand, and it kind of baffles me and it amazes me to a degree that people never account for how much things really cost. And when you're looking at life insurance and how to value how much you should have, I mean, you really got to factor in, like realistically, like what does a loss of my income look like to my family? Think about the hardship. Yeah, maybe my spouse is still going to continue to work. If you pass away, what if they go through a bad time and they have to leave their job or quit their job or go on disability or something like that? What if your kids, you had smaller kids, and what if they get sick 5 years down the road after you passed away? Is there finances there to take care of that? So it's really planning. I always say I factor in inflation, just like the recent water claim on your home, Nick.
Right.
Neither of us realized it was going to wind up being that much damage or cost that much money to remediate. So if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, think about the loss of a life and it's someone's family. It's like, yeah, it's going to be a lot more than you think that's going to be. So don't really skimp out on that either. Just if you think, $100,000 in coverage looks like a round number, maybe it's not. Maybe it's $500,000. Maybe it's 600,000 or even $1 million. I mean, that the things to think about, going down the road is things are always going to cost more than you think.
Most definitely. Speaking of which, before you jumped on, I shared this, but I'll share this again, Mike, so you can see it. So this is why it's important to have insurance, because this is what it was when the damage happened and they had to cut out, which was roughly around $7,700 for remediation, including those dryer fans, removing the walls, throwing the waste away, all the garbage, and then roughly about $10,000 to restore it. So we're looking at about, say, 18 grand to restore the house. But here, as of last night, which will be finished by tomorrow, that's where we're at today.
Looking good.
We're on that. You can see that they have gotten that far with the new floors, because as you saw in the original picture, everybody, the laminate vinyl floors, which are called waterproof floors, were completely engulfed in mold, so they had to throw them away. And then we had to not just replace walls, we had to replace flooring and some parts of the bathroom as well. But
and how long ago did was the claim? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Like, when did we start this?
About 5 or 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months now, actually.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to stress to everybody out there in the real estate community, and even the Florida homeowners, is that water is not fun. And I know me and Nick have talked about this on the podcast before, but water is whatever you think it's going to be. It's 3 to 4 times more in regards to what it's going to cost to remediate. And then the time element, whatever you think, this can be cleaned up in a week. No, it's always worse. We say that we've seen fires that, like maybe a kitchen fire that burned up half a kitchen, easier to mitigate than water. Fire, like once it's out, it's out. Things are burned. Water continues to seep, get in places, cause mold. And this is why insurance companies over the past decade have gotten limited water damage. They've limited it usually to $10,000. That's kind of becoming the standard, especially on older homes in Florida. If you notice on water backup on any insurance policy known to man out there right now, water backup and sewer backup is limited to $5,000. When you get on older properties, older than 15 years, they want to see a new hot water heater. They don't want to see polybutylene plumbing. Or any defects in the plumbing. This is because water is bad, and which transitions me over into kind of the next topic, which is, this is a small water leak that caused damage. It's, pipe leaking. Now, imagine if that was flooding. Imagine if that was rain building up outside. Imagine that if that was Tampa Bay, knocking at your front door, tidal waters, river, lake, whatever you live on. Imagine that coming in there. Imagine that amount of water and how long that would take to mitigate, clean up, and the cost behind that. And still yet, most Floridians, unless they're required by their lender, do not carry flood insurance, which is the most baffling thing to me. I'm watching the news this morning. I'm watching New York. I'm watching New Jersey, cars underwater. Yet here in Florida, people, even out where you live, Nick, don't carry flood insurance. And they're like, it's never going to happen to me. And I'm like, when's the last time you watched the news? Because in New York, there's a car underwater. And if you don't think Florida can flood, or it's happened before, it has already happened before. And especially in places like Tampa or St. Pete, where, God forbid, knock on wood, we haven't had a Cat 5 hit that area straight on. But guarantee you look at like South Beach when they've gotten hit by hurricanes. You've seen Mexico Beach getting hit by hurricanes. If that was water damage from ocean water or tidal water right now, that would have been probably 30 times as worse. And so I'm telling everybody out there now, go get flood insurance, because what's happening too in Florida, and a lot of the average consumer does not know this, but they have what's coming out October 1st, which is called in another month, which is called Flood 2.0. FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program, National Flood Service, is redefining of how they are rating flood. They're throwing out the flood certificates, the flood elevation charts. They're getting rid of that. They have enough historical data that they're going on now. So what they're doing is they're not looking at a risk or like, your home, Nick, from like, my home together, not looking at a pooled risk there. They're really looking at each risk as an individual. And unfortunately, they were saying about 70% of the rate increases, or I think it's like 70 or 80%, of the flood insurance rate increases are going to be taxed to Florida. Could that change and tack them to New York and New Jersey after Ida? Probably. But right now, in the next probably 6 months, and people's renewals are going to go up. I mean, like if you're on somewhere like Longboat Key or right on the shore, or you're over in Daytona Beach or whatnot, your rates are probably going to go through the roof substantially, because everything has been underpriced in Florida for, since probably the late 70s. And with technology now, they're really able to see what the cost of flooding is. They're getting rid of things like grandfathering. So like if you were in like a preferred zone where you didn't have to carry flood insurance, and you get remapped into like a standardized floodplain, guess what? They're not going to honor the preferred rates anymore. They're getting rid of that. So it's October 1st. Most new policies that are issued after that are going to be hit with these new rates. And then anything renewing after October 1st, and depending on the insurance company, what they want to do, some of them are slated to start acting on renewals maybe like April 1st of next year. So I think most insurance companies are probably going to wait till April 1st before they start implementing like all these changes. But what does it mean? It means go out there and get your flood insurance now while you can. Because guess what? FEMA is going to raise the rates, and it's going to impact a bunch of Floridians.
No, most definitely. I would say we're considered a non-flood zone, but when it rains here, we have creeks near us that if we had enough substantial rain from a tropical depression, that water could creep its way up into our yard and into our house. Just because we're in a supposed non-flood zone doesn't mean that it won't happen one day.
Yeah, so. And people don't think that tidal water can go very far, but if people forget, like Hurricane Matthew, the water, even though it wasn't that deep, but I mean, it was past the speedway all the way up to 95. I mean, maybe a foot or two of water, streets flooded, and then went away, receded pretty quickly. But I mean, it was flooded. I mean, speedway had probably a foot or two of water out there in the middle sections of it. And it was kind of like flood water and tidal water can go that far pretty easily. And again, like if you don't think what's happening in the Northeast can happen to Florida, people are sadly mistaken. And then again, looking at Nick's photos here, looking at your photos, take that water line and put it halfway up the wall and see how long. I mean, it becomes a total loss at that point. You might have to walk away from your home if that happens. And then yet people don't want to carry coverage.
No, that was actually, since you were involved in or part of this where I've shared this with you, because I got insurance through you guys, to Florida Penn, of course. But you saw that at one point, everybody listening or watching, is that the Joe Taylor Restoration kept calling me every day when they were doing remediation, and they went all the way to my laundry room to rip out walls. And it was getting to the point where I was afraid they were going to tell me that my whole entire house was engulfed in mold, which could have been a total loss, and I would have had to move out and go somewhere and have the entire house redone instead of just half of it, which half of it, just to let you guys know, listening, like Mike was telling how the cleanup process and the revitalization of your home takes time, that it's been like 2 months just to put the walls back and get to where the picture of where I just showed you guys a minute ago, that's taken about 2 months just to get to this point.
Yep.
And it came from this in the bathroom right there. So you guys can see the mold spores growing on the wall behind the mirror. When we took off the mirror, and then when they did there, you see that bubbling, guys, on the wall there? That was my only indication that there was something wrong in the house. And then when they went to take off baseboards halfway through the house, or the whole entire house, 50% of the house was covered in that black mold behind the drywall.
Yeah, I mean, this happens. Unfortunately, we see it all the time. We see bad shower pans. We see slow leaks, especially on investment properties, that it can get in between the walls. I mean, like, people don't know it can get underneath flooring and whatnot and cause a lot of damage. And a lot of the time we see where people just clean up the surface, like something like that. They may just say, oh, it's, I was away for the weekend and, there's some puddles of water in my kitchen. They clean it up, and they don't bring in a company like, Joe Taylor Restoration to come in and actually take a water and infrared camera and go around and checks. And I've seen that happen where it's gotten underneath, kitchen cabinets or bathroom cabinets and just sits there and starts causing mold. And it could be a couple of years before anybody discovers it. And until that water is going to continue to creep and grow mold until it stops or it basically evaporates. And that could take a long time. So it's very important for everybody out there to, again, make sure you got the right, it's really a team effort. So it's really, even though it's getting a good insurance agency like Blanchard Insurance, getting a good policy with a good company like Florida Penn, and getting a good water remediation service or, an independent remediation company like Joe Taylor Restoration to take care of this. Number one, you want to make sure the insurance agent is your advocate, who knows, and me and Nick, the entire time we're discussing hypotheticals from day one of, what's going to happen, okay, well, how much water coverage do I have? If we find mold, how much mold coverage do I have? What's this going to look like? What's the timeline going to look like? What's Joe Taylor Restoration going to come in and do? How are they going to communicate this over to the adjuster? What is my expectations? So it's really important to get an agent that does that. Number two, all insurance companies aren't created equally. We represent, a good number of companies, but I can tell you, and I'm not going to name names here, Florida Penn is, I'll mention them. They're one of our top tier companies where certain companies, when it comes to paying, you may pay a little bit more money in insurance premium for them, but when it comes to paying out claims and when it comes to handling claims, they're kind of a notch above the rest. I mean, you could say there is, a major league team and a farm team. And Florida Penn just happens to be a major league team. So it also comes down to what carrier you have. And it also, and lastly, it comes down to those remediation companies. Maybe it's not your best option is not just a Serve Pro or not just, a franchise or whatnot, off the beaten path. Maybe it's somebody more who works for the insurance companies and works with the agencies like Joe Taylor Restoration. I mean, they are a preferred vendor, if not the preferred vendor for Florida Penn, and are our preferred vendor as well. So when you have these three entities working as a team to solve your problems, there's going to be coverage. There's going to be, things are going to progress, and eventually, you're going to be made whole again.
Most definitely. And speaking of one last thing too, is that like we're talking about, that was a copper pipe sweating in the wall, and as you guys notice in the picture, where does the water trickle to? The electrical outlets on the wall. It could have caused a fire as well, because it was going right for the electrical source behind the wall. So thank goodness for, and the other thing too, Mike, too, the good thing everybody out there is about Florida Penn, they're in Florida, and they could have also I was also told through the process that Florida Penn could have said this was pre-existing and that they would not cover this damage. And then I would have had to pay for this out of my own pocket. There was a possibility.
Yeah, true. I mean, there are some insurance companies who are more liberal on how they handle claims, and they're not going to be the ones that you find on social media or the ones where you see ads all over the place saying, and very salesy, like, give us your business, or our premiums are cheapo depot and whatnot. Those companies are going to be the ones who, hey, they got nothing to lose. I mean, like, they can wiggle their way out of paying a claim. And then there's the trusted Florida companies that have been around and been doing business in Florida for over 10 years. They've been through the hurricanes. They've handled Nick, and they've handled thousands of other homeowners who've had the same problems as Nick has. They have expertise in this industry. They know how to do it. A lot of the other companies that are up and coming, or who are just trying to get in Florida and make a quick buck and don't really have that experience in Florida, they don't know what to do. They don't have the partnerships. They haven't seen thousands of claims. So what are they doing? A lot of the time they're looking for, what's the easiest way out of it? Can they go and say, hey, yeah, Nick, guess what? It was a leak that was here before you bought the home. So it's not our responsibility to fix it. It's a slow leak. Or, you haven't had the policy long enough for us to cover the claim. There are ways they can, any company can get out of paying a claim. But then there's, companies who truly believe that's the value of the product and it's a cost of doing business. And again, I mean, you're not going to find them where you find an insurance policy for $500 or anything like that you bought off, Facebook, but you're going to find these companies have been around and been reputable. And that's why, our agency really, unless the company's been active selling business in Florida for probably 10 years, I don't really want to partner with them, because I've seen companies come in, I've seen companies go, I've seen them go belly up. I can take a look at a rate for a fly-by-night company and say, yeah, guess what? If you're paying $500 in premium, or even $1,000 and you're over in St. Pete, guess what? They're not going to pay a claim. And I can tell you that thousands of times I've seen this. So it's, again, there is value to an insurance policy. And if you look at the investment, I mean, I'm not going to shout Nick's premium out, but when you look at the amount of premium he's paid for his first year of homeowners insurance and the return on the insurance that was able to fix his house, I mean, they're doing very well. And people don't look at it from that investment side of insurance, and especially in Florida, where statistically you're going to have a claim within 5 years. So you got to look at, am I investing in look at it like a stock. Am I investing in a stock that it's going to have return in 5 years, or a mutual fund that's going to have, or even a 401k? Like, what does it look like 5 years down the road when I actually have to take money out, or use an insurance policy? And people, unfortunately, just look at insurance for the value of, I want the cheapest thing possible. I don't care. This can't happen to me.
No, I would say that this was the best decision to. Yes, I went for the more expensive policy, but it's already paid for itself.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, all right, Mike. Well, Labor Day weekend coming up, and so very appreciated that you were able to come on today, and then get to catch up now that I'm finally getting things back to normal here at home with the claim that I've been going through, and now that the house is coming back in order. So, anyways, we'll be back next week, guys. And Mike, is there one last thing you want to say before we go?
Yeah, everybody just enjoy a very safe Labor Day. Again, be cognizant not of yourself in regards to COVID out there. I mean, I know everybody has their own personal beliefs and everything, and I'm good with that. I don't really get involved in my neighbors out there and fellow humanity. But I'm just saying, be cognizant of other people as well. Think about it. You're like, whatever you do is an act of kindness to somebody else. So I think if everybody's cognizant of that, not only will society be better in its relation to handling the COVID epidemic, but it just helps everything out in general. So that's all I can say is, just be kind this holiday weekend.
Couldn't agree more. Everybody be respectful of everyone. All right, Mike. Well, you have a good weekend.
You too, man.
See you next week, and take care, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening today. All right, take care.
Good.
This has been Home to All, an all-inclusive real estate podcast. Find Nick on Facebook and Instagram at downtown.expert, and also his website, www.downtown.expert, or call or text him at 407-508-8809. Thanks for listening.
No one knows what the future holds, but if a new house is in your future, I can help from a safe distance. I'm Nick Acosta, your downtown expert, and I'm hosting safe and sanitary open houses. Nothing is different except for temperature checks at the door and masks are required. But it still smells like there are fresh baked cookies in the oven. So come on by one of my safe and sanitary open houses, and I'll say welcome home from 6 feet away.